So I'm going live a few seconds early, and that's so that I can get things set up. YouTube has a pretty good delay. So as soon as it kicks in, I will be able to mute it. There it goes.
So I'm going live a few...
There we go. Okay, so welcome. I want to thank Lee today for today's topic. And that topic is going to be how to do points and corners. So Lee, we haven't really had a chance to discuss it much. Do you, where's my, hold on, I'm looking for some windows that I need. Do you have like a specific instance that you want to use it on?
Well, I'm hooking this one rug, and there's sharp corners in leaves, and there's graceful corners in flowers, and yet there's points, and there's curves, and there's corners, and there's, you know, shapes that go from very thin to wider. Like in the middle of a flower, it'll give this other little thing, and then there's, you know, the bottom of the flower where it's very, you know, it's the base of the flower.
Okay.
On the bottom, you know, where it attaches to the stem. I don't know what that's called, huh? Where it attaches to the stem, the little bulb thing. And so it has these corners coming up and then rounded at the bottom, and my goodness, there's all these twists and turns and things I'm not really used to.
Okay.
In the class I took, it was kind of like more straight lines,
right?
Which is easy.
Well, in learning to hook on a straight line pattern, I think is important because you're not concentrating on, oh, should it be this color? Should it be that color? I don't know what color to make. And then you have to like get into the mode where you have to hook it. And people always, when I see a new rug hooker, the first realization that there's no like DMC chart that tells them to put color 823 here and color 1343 here. There's nothing like that for rug hooking, right? You are open to put whatever you want wherever you want it. And that can be a little bit intimidating. So usually I start a beginner with what I call a beginner square, and it's all straight lines, and it's simply playing with color and putting fun color in, but it's not representational of anything. Okay, so let me go to the down camera here, and I'm going to try to guess what some of your shapes are. Okay, I moved all this stuff out of the way before I went live, and then I moved it all back in. So let's get that straightened around. Okay, so you're probably seeing maybe a leaf shape, something like that, right?
Well, actually, there's these other points along the way. It's not just a flat leaf, but it's got all these other points. So it's yes,
like
yes,
this?
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, you definitely need to know how to do points, which are here and here, but also here, here, and here, right? So that gets it a little bit more complicated, but it's definitely not impossible. So what I almost always do, and I don't know why, but that's the way I do it, and it's the way I drew it. When I'm hooking the stem, I go up right straight into the vein. And usually they're the same color. They don't have to be. It's just fast and it's easy to do it this way. So then I would start working up these sides. And I would get to that weird little point. So let's talk about what you're going to do at that point. Okay? So let's say, well, we're doing a leaf, so let's do green. And you're going to put a tail somewhere, doesn't matter where. I will often start close enough to the tip so that I don't run out of wool if I've got a strip that I'm working with. I know a lot of people will start and stop at the corner, at the tip of a star or at the tip of a leaf. I don't like that look. I don't like that process of hooking, so I'll usually start more somewhere like right where I started drawing these lines. I'll start on one side of the stem and work my way up. As you get to that point, you're going to put in loops until they don't fit. And I would say maybe there, maybe this one. I'm just going to cheat a little bit, move that up and say it's like this. Okay. So when you can't put any more loops in because they just don't fit, then I put in a loop that goes that way. So I turn my hook and I twist it so that it's coming up in a different direction. Then to fill in this little space, I will put this one sideways also. So it's coming from here to here. So there's a little bit of a travel, but not a whole lot. And then once I get going, I just continue down that side with the loops. Okay. The key to this is once you put your background around it, that'll really help with that shape. So usually once I get a point in, I'm going to come right back and I'm going to start hooking background. And I'm going to get background around this right away. Now, why do I do that? I always say that the second strip of wool that you hook with should be your background wool. Okay? And the reason for that is you do not want to get completely to the end and then go, I don't have, all I have left to hook is background. That would make me absolutely crazy, right? I want to continue to hook my motifs because that's the interesting part of the rug. I don't want to do the boring part of the rug. So every little bit of background that I hook today is a strip that I don't have to hook tomorrow.
So it won't look funky turning them in different directions?
Nope.
And at the background, what do you do in that space that you have at the very top?
Okay.
With
So
that,
when I come around with the second one, because you don't want to pack it too much, when I come around with the second row, I'll just do something like that.
Okay.
And then go around it like so. So it gets filled in, and anytime I can disrupt the look of perfectly straight rows going around and around and around, this is a good, happy thing happening. Right? Because it breaks the eye and you can't see the background. So sometimes what I'll do with the background is I will on purpose turn a strip sideways and then maybe come down here and start hooking the strip here.
Yeah, I don't like the absolutely straight lines everywhere. I like it kind of
right.
Messy. Not messy, but you know what I mean.
A little bit more irregular. Just look for those opportunities while you're hooking, and that'll really help. But now I've got one strip of the motif in, but I have two of background. So proportionately, I have hooked more background than I have of the motif, which is a really good thing because now I don't have to mess with that. Okay.
Those things are really cool because they really show what needs to be done.
Right. Yep.
That's cool. Okay.
Yep. Okay. So the other question you had was turning a corner. So let's talk briefly about turning a corner. And turning a corner is one of those things that I do now so much without even thinking. And it's a technique that works every single time. If you hook like this, and I want to center it, I didn't do that dotted line far. This is a big cut. I don't know what this is, but I'm going to put these right on that dotted line so you guys can get the effect. So now I've got this one on this corner, right? And then when I do this one, all of a sudden I end up with this weird little blank spot. And it's not a true corner, right? Because I am hooking perfectly in this ditch, but it's not working to my advantage, right? So what I'll usually do is I will pull out a couple, usually 2 strips on this approach line, and I'm going to use a different color so it makes a little bit more sense. And I am going to pack it. Now what happens when you pack? Your loops are coming up like this on normal, right? Because you want to be able to draw a line through the loop. And this is normal hooking, right? Packing ends up looking like this because there's just not enough room for that loop to live, and that's what causes your backing to kind of curl and become poofy. And it's when the line through the top of the loop to the roots is not straight up and down. So this is packing. But I'm going to use packing here on purpose. I took out 2 strips or 2 loops and I've put in 3. What happens is that last one is leaning over so that when I start hooking this way, it lines up perfectly as a square. Okay, so then once I've got it, I'm going to turn, I'm going to follow in that same loop or that same row or ditch. I'll often take my pencil and just run my pencil through that line if I need to be sure to hit it every time, because I have a hard time seeing, but I can see the pencil line. So I'll often draw it, and I'll draw it right on my frame. And then I'll just continue with that process. That gives you a beautiful point that doesn't have this thing going on, right? And you're still hooking in that ditch perfectly. So when you get to the outside of the rug, it's still perfect. But the loops are packed so they lean in and they fill up that space. So that's how you get a nice crisp corner.
Now, how about curves on the tips of flowers and circles and that kind of thing?
Okay.
Am I taking up too much of the time?
No, you're fine. You're fine. Okay, so let's do at least part of a circle, right? What's going to happen there, and you always, I don't know if you've noticed, but I'm placing, with the exception of this one because I wanted it to be in that ditch, I'm placing the loop so I can still see the pattern on the outside edge. That is something I want you to get used to. So what'll happen is that there's little spaces. You know, they might be really nice and tight here, but there'll be spaces there, but that's not a problem because you're going to come back and you're going to, you know, fill it in. And you're going to just going to continue on like so. Sorry for the color changes. I'm just picking up randomly whatever's nearby. And that makes the circle. So if you are counting threads, if you're going, okay, I skip 2 threads and I pull up a loop. I skip 2 threads and I pull up a loop. Guess what? It's not going to work on a pattern like this because it's got a curve. It's not going to work. Skipping 2 rows or 2 threads is not going to work if your wool is extra thick or if it's extra thin. So you have to adjust it. And so what I'd rather have you do than counting, first of all, it'll make you go blind. And it takes the joy out of rug cooking because you're trying to be so precise. You just stick it in where it feels right and pull it up. And if it blooms and it fills up the spot, then you go on to the next one. And you just continue that process all the way along. So any part of a flower, any part of somebody's face, you're going to, use that method the same way. Did that answer your question, Lee?
Yes, it did. I was just looking at this pattern thinking, oh my. Well, at least that helps, yes, because I was just getting to the curves in one of the leaves, and this one has just, it comes around, stops, and then goes around and stops, and then goes around and stops, and it's like, okay, that's kind of interesting. What do you do in that kind of a case?
Without
so it's like,
seeing the pattern, I can't visualize what you're describing.
Oh, here. Can you see? I don't know if you can see this or not.
Hold on, let me spotlight you. Oops.
Right there. Right in here, and then it goes up.
Oh,
and
okay.
Then it goes down, and then.
You're definitely not going to want to cut every time it comes down to a breaking point.
Right. There.
You're just going to kind of continue around and do it again. That is going to be your best bet, is to just follow that shape and then continue on with the next one. So let's do it this way. Okay, one more adjustment. There we go. So you would be coming in with your loops, and the scale might be off. I might have drawn it too small. You know, this would be, you know, it's
I don't think it's spotlighted.
I'm not?
No. I can't get it to spotlight.
Okay, can everybody else see my down camera?
I can see it fine.
Okay. Put it on speaker view or multi-speaker, and that'll work.
Okay.
So you're just going to kind of like continue to do this. And then what happens when I get down here, it's kind of like putting it together like that. Does that make sense?
So you're not packing it down there. You're just, or are you packing the loop?
No, I'm not necessarily packing. No,
Okay.
no. Packing I use in turning a corner because it'll help it to lean into, to fill in that weird little empty space in a corner. But for this, you know, I just kind of continue around and then just keep going the other direction. What will happen with definition is when you come in with your background and you punch it into there. Now, how would you do that? So let's say we're going to have a red background. So you're going to come in like this, and then I might turn that sideways. That seems to fit. And then turn this. Well, actually, that could go up and down. And sometimes that's what happens when I'm hooking. I'll have to like pull out a loop and put another loop in. But you can stack these things in various methods, however you need to fill up the space. Another way might be if I did it that way and just pop that way down in there. I try to over exaggerate when I have points that I want to fill in. So that would be another way of doing it. Would be to, you know, force that loop into that little sweet spot.
Now your background is going to cover the mark that from the inside. So your background will cover that, like, yes.
This line?
That.
Yeah, what'll happen is it'll end up in between your motif and your background, and it'll just be hidden. It's in that no man's zone.
Okay.
Okay. If anyone on YouTube has questions, I am monitoring the YouTube comments. So if you have a question, you can put a comment in there. But right now, I'm talking to the members of the Rug Cooking Journey on Zoom. This is something we do every single week. And what I'm going to do here is probably end the YouTube sharing. But I do want to pause for a moment to see if any of you on YouTube have a question. And then if you don't, then what I'll do is I will cut off the YouTube part of it. We'll stay here in Zoom, so don't leave. And then for those of you that are here on Zoom, and then I'll continue with the Q&A, and we can tackle any other topic that you want to tackle. There is one bit of news that I want to say before I cut off YouTube, is that today, right now, is the last time. It's going to be till midnight. In practical terms, I'm not staying up to midnight, and I don't trust my automation to do it, so I want to do it manually. I will manually tomorrow turn off, it'll be early because I'm an early riser. I'm going to turn off the ability for you to join the rug cooking journey. Those of you in the journey, we will continue business as usual. There just won't be any new people for a while. And then I'll kick it off this fall, and then we'll allow new members to come in. But the price will be higher. So if you're thinking about joining, now is a good time before I shut it down tonight at midnight, or 6 a.m. tomorrow, is what it amounts to. So I don't see any questions from YouTube. So thank you guys for being here, and thank you for watching my YouTube videos, and I will see you guys next time. And then, oh shoot, where's the window there we go.